When preparing a lecture, presentation, or online course, each of us asks ourselves a similar question. How can we present difficult content so that students not only hear it, but truly understand and remember it? One theory that helps answer this question is dual coding theory, developed by Alan Paivio. Its main idea is seemingly simple. We learn more effectively when information is presented in both verbal and visual forms. In other words, our minds remember content better when it can encode it twice, as words and as images. According to this theory, the human mind processes information through two related but partially independent systems. The first is the verbal system, responsible for words, text, speech, definitions, and concepts. The second is the then non-verbal or visual system associated with images, diagrams, graphs, symbols, space, and representations. When we use only one channel, for example, when speaking for a long time or showing students a slide full of text, we primarily activate the verbal system. However, if we combine a short explanation with a well-chosen diagram, model, concept map, or graph, we create two paths to the same information. This phenomenon is particularly important in academic teaching, where we often work with abstract concepts. A well-designed visualization helps our students see and understand relationships, hierarchies, process steps, or dependencies between concepts. It's worth remembering, however, that dual coding doesn't simply mean add an image to a slide. This is one of the most common pitfalls. Graphics are educational only if they aid in understanding the content. If they are random, decorative, or too visually appealing, they can actually be distracting. In such cases, the student's brain begins to process something irrelevant to learning, and instead of supporting understanding, the image becomes cognitive noise. This dual coding theory was used and developed by Richard Meyer, among others, in his theory of multimedia learning. One of his most important principles is, don't overload one channel. If a slide has a long definition and the lecturer reads it aloud, students must simultaneously read and listen to the same text. This is too much for them. A better solution is to show a simple diagram, axis, process, map, or visual metaphor, and then explain it orally. The image organizes the structure, and the words convey meaning. Only then can the two systems begin to work together. How can dual coding be used in the classroom? First, it's worth redesigning your slides. Instead of a wall of text, you can show a module, diagram, sequence of steps, or simple graphics illustrating the relationships between concepts. Details can be added orally. Second, you can encourage students to take visual notes. This isn't about artistic drawings, but rather arrows, boxes, icons, mind maps, and simple diagrams. Such note-taking forces deeper processing of the content. Third, it's worth using visual metaphors. Working memory can be compared to a desk that can only hold a few things at once. The project management process can be depicted as a path with decision points. A theoretical model can be represented as a system of interconnected layers. However, we should remember that images aren't always helpful. Sometimes they can be overly simplistic, distracting, or suggest an overly simplistic understanding of a complex concept. Therefore, we should constantly ask ourselves whether this visual format truly helps students understand the structure of a problem. Dual coding reminds us that images are not just illustrations, but also tools that develop our thinking.